Hi, welcome to Psyched with Rena. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the 8 primary challenges Asian Americans and other children of immigrants face in the workplace. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Rena Chin. I'm a psychotherapist in the Seattle area, and I primarily work with people of color, or as Resma Menakem would call them, bodies of culture. So let's get into it. What are the primary challenges that Asian American and children of immigrants face in the workplace? You may want to first check out my other video on the 8 general challenges that Asian Americans face in general and see how they correspond to these professional challenges I'm going to list. The first challenge I see happening with clients is the problem of perfectionism. That is the desire to do everything perfectly. And while it's good to have a high standard, the problem with this is that it contributes to them feeling stuck, that they're unable to try new things or venture into new areas because they're afraid that they won't be competent enough. One antidote to this is to develop more self-compassion, more gentleness with ourselves, to know that we are not going to be perfect, that actually everybody else but us knows we are not perfect, and so we should be more vulnerable in our ability to try new things and to experiment. The second challenge I see is imposter syndrome. I'm going to actually do a separate video on this next week, but it is the tendency to feel like you are just faking it, that you don't really belong. Maybe as a person of color, you feel like you are fortunate to have the job that you have. You might be afraid of being found out, that you are not good enough, or feeling very vulnerable in the workplace. What this imposter syndrome does is it prevents us from advocating for ourselves for things we might actually deserve. Another challenge I often see is those of us coming from a hierarchical background. What that means is if you come from a patriarchal society, it's possible you might have boundary issues in the workplace. Perhaps you have trouble standing up to your bosses and setting boundaries, either on the amount that you work or on communicating good deadlines. I have a client, Valerie, who is very threatened when her boss says that something is due at a certain time. And she might be intimidated enough by just the hierarchical structure not to speak up and tell him what is doable and what is not doable in a certain time frame. So that's something to check in with yourself. If you are used to being in a paternalistic structure, used to respecting and honoring your elders, why that's not a bad thing, we may want to check if we're having appropriate boundaries and communications with our supervisors or people above us. Another challenge that Asian Americans face is the idea of emphasizing externals too much, that they need to appear as if they know everything. Now, I have a client, Marissa, who would be on call, and sometimes, once at least, she didn't know the answer to a specific problem. And she was able to look at the team of experts and find the solution. But it was hard for her to realize that she would appear like she didn't know something. It's helpful if we are willing to be able to access help when we need it. She was able to draw resources from the team, and so I would want people, when they're used to emphasizing externals, to realize that by trying to look foolproof all the time, we are cutting off access to help for ourselves. Another challenge is coming from a collectivist culture, where harmony, everyone getting along, is the primary emphasis. What this means is that sometimes Asian Americans or children of immigrants may not be as prone to challenge the system, to raise questions, and to express themselves in an aggressive or competitive environment. When we are able to celebrate ourselves, to realize that we don't need to be perfect to have value, that will free us up. One of the primary problems I see with Asian Americans in the workplace is also the problem of comparison. When we are filled with jealousy and judging someone else's outside compared to the struggles we have internally, it makes us hard to rejoice with colleagues when they have a success. Another tendency is to focus on milestones or goals and possibly ignoring our passions or interests. While it could be good to have goals, to know your progress as you move along, we want to leave room for adaptability to explore other options, other careers. I have a client, Ling, who was working in sales at a major company, and she made a huge transition, a lateral move to work in user experience, more on the technical side. And while it was very scary for her to go into a new field, and she felt some opposition from people around her thinking, why are you doing this new thing? You aren't as good at it. It's a lateral move. You have a lot of potential to move up in sales. However, she had to listen to her interest in exploring this area. And it took some strength to be able to take a risk and to try something new and explore. To do this, she had to be willing to let go of some of those milestones or goals that other people saw for her, whether they were financial or title-wise, and now she's actually very happy working in user experience. The last challenge I see Asian Americans and children of immigrants face in the workplace is that of code switching. It is the need or tendency to act like everyone in the dominant culture in your workplace, whether it's the way you dress or your sense of humor or the kind of food you like to eat. And we want to be able to develop a sense of ourselves as the cultural person that we are in our workplace, able to express ourselves authentically. If any of these challenges resonated with you, I'd love to hear more below in the comments. Also, please give me suggestions on what you'd like to hear videos on. Now, if you'd like to hear more, please consider subscribing to Psyched with Rena. You can ring the bell to be notified of new videos and hit subscribe. Also, I would like you to check out some of my other videos. Some of them are actually the antidotes to some of these workplace challenges, whether it's how to stop worrying, how to be more decisive, how to control yourself when you're triggered. So I will look forward to seeing you later. This is Psyched with Rena signing out. Bye-bye.